In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the HGLRC Forward FD413 combo. Now this is a pretty interesting combo because they give you everything you need in order to basically build a toothpick. And what do I mean by that? Well, this is a 16 by 16 stack. Usually we run 20 by 20 and 30 by 30s, but for toothpicks there's two types. We have the 16 by 16 boards such as these right here, and we also have the Crazy Bee type boards. Now many people prefer this over the Crazy Bee board, but Crazy Bee boards also have a benefit of being much lighter, but here you have every component doing a specific thing. So if one thing goes out, it's much easier to replace because you just replace that one thing. However, on a Crazy Bee board, if something goes out, you have to replace the whole board. Now the Crazy Bee board, if you don't know, this is basically the flight controller, the ESCs, the receiver, and the PDB with the OSD all into one board, which is putting all your eggs in one basket, and some people don't like doing that. However, recently we've been seeing an influx of these 16 by 16 stacks, which perform absolutely phenomenal. So let's get started here. We're going to start with the ESC. Now, the ESC is a BLHeli S ESC, which is rated up to a 15 amp burst, which will handle the job just fine for just about any micro / toothpick. Even the FET size is pretty large. It's bigger than the Crazy Bee boards, which is a huge thing. The bigger the size doesn't always mean better, but most of the time, you know, it's better in heat dissipation, handles a bit more current, and overall, it's a good thing to have. Not only that, they have pretty fat capacitors for such a board. Not many 16 by 16 ESCs do that, and this is a really great sign in terms of noise reduction and noise filtration. So huge plus there. And they also give you a Chinese low ESR capacitor, which is even better, and I highly recommend you add this on everything. So if we were to install this into our quadcopter, what we'd want to do is install it just like this. You have to install it like this, or else your quadcopter will never work. This would be the back where the batteries will be connected to. So you'd bring this guy in, positive and negative, and you could read that on the bottom here. The GND is going to be black, and the bat is going to be the red. So now the bat is on the left here once we flip it over. So those would solder into place back here. And once that's set, then you solder each motor. So the first three here for one motor, and the other three for another motor, just like that, very important. And then we have our little connector, which will do all of the connection for us to the flight controller. However, I think they should have probably done this connector a bit smaller. I think this is too long of a connector for a toothpick build, because this will take quite a lot of space here. So I wish it was at least half the length of this wire. So that's something to take note of here. You can always shorten it out, but usually this will just get the job done, so you don't really have to worry about that. So next down the line, we have the F4 flight controller. Now again, this is an F4, which is a good thing. We have our little boot button. We also have our OSD right here, which is huge. We have a switching regulator for the 5 volt, which is something we want. We want a pretty good one usually, because the flight controllers on these types of board usually will be outputting the 5 volt for the video transmitter as well. And the video transmitters that take 5 volt usually take quite a lot of amperage. So you really want a good voltage regulator on these flight controllers. And that's what we see here. We have a really nice switching reg going on for it. And now let's see how we would actually connect this. Now common sense might tell you to do it like this, but actually no, you're wrong. The USB should be on the bottom, the boot button on the left, and the connector is in the front. This is where your camera would be. So this is how it would be installed. If you installed it, for example, like this, on this side, it'll never fly unless you do some offsets. So this is the default way it should be installed in your quadcopter. Now the connection is very simple. The connection to the ESC and how it gets power is just through this connector. So the ESC would get the power and give the power to the flight controller, and the flight controller has the regulator in order to drop down the voltage to run the 5 volt VTX here, which we'll get into in a bit. So now let's see how we would go about connecting a receiver, for example. Whether you're S-bus or I-bus, we're going to cover both here. Now, if you're going to be using S-bus, what you'd want to do is you want to put your S-bus signal on the second pad from the bottom, which is this one right here. So that would be your signal. Next down the line, we have the 5 volt right here, and then the ground, which is right here. So this is for S-bus. We would use these three. Now, if you're using I-bus or Spectrum, you keep in mind Spectrum needs 3.3 volts. I don't know if this has a 3.3 volt. I haven't checked it, but we'll come back to that later. So let's just say you're using I-bus, which is FlySky. Where you'd want to put your I-bus signal would be the first pad right here, and this is RX1. And your UART1 would basically be your serial RX in the Betaflight ports tab. So keep that in mind. So here would be the I-bus, and then the same thing for the power. We have the 5 volt here and the ground. And that's it. All we got to do is just choose between these two if we have a 5 volt receiver. Next thing down the line is going to be our video transmitter. Now the video transmitter here comes with a connector, but it goes down to soldering points. Now you don't even have to use this connector. It also has the pads down here if you wanted to use them as well instead of using this connector, which will reduce weight slightly. So you can cut this off right here and just solder direct. Now for this video transmitter, what we have is the yellow wire, which is going to be our video. The green wire is going to be smart audio, which allows us to change the channel output power through the on-screen display instead of coming here and pressing the button when the props are on. So it's always a really nice feature to have set up. And then the black is 5 volt. The black is ground and the red is 5 volt. If you give any more than 5 volt to this red wire, you're going to blow this VTX up. And if you boot this VTX without installing the antenna first, you're going to damage the VTX. So make sure you install the antenna before you ever boot this guy up. So I highly recommend just keep it on always so you don't forget. So there we go. It fits on really nice and easy, really nice and snug. So yeah, just make sure this is always on. So let's see where we would connect this. So on the flight controller, we would have to solder it to these 4 pads. Now the first one down here is going to be our video. So we would actually take the yellow wire and solder it right here. Next thing we have is the 5 volt. So that would be soldered right there. Then the third one is going to be ground, which is that wire right here, the black wire. And then the 4th pad all the way up is going to be the smart audio, which will allow us to change the channel through the on-screen display. So it's just that simple with this build. So that's really nice. And they also provide you with an instruction manual. It's a bit difficult to see, and that should really help you with the installation process. Next thing we have is the camera. Now what's really nice with the camera is they've also kept it on the same side. So it's going to be right here, the top 3 right there. And the way these actually install would be the topmost pin is going to be the video. So that would be the yellow wire from your camera. The next wire down is going to be the 5 volt, which is going to be the red wire of your camera. And then the third one is going to be the ground, which is the black wire of your camera. And you're set and done here. So you still have some things left over as well. And on this side is where we'd actually install either a buzzer and or an LED. So if you wanted to install the buzzer, this is very important that you install it the way I'm going to tell you right now. What you'd want to do is you want to put the 5 volt of the buzzer right here, and then the ground of the buzzer right there. And that would install the buzzer. Now, if you wanted to install LEDs, what you'd want to do is you want to set up the ground wire of the LED on the top one. And then on the second one down is going to be the 5 volt for the LED. And on the bottom one right here is going to be the signal for the LED, which tells it what color to be. And yeah, and that's really it. There's nothing else left to this guy. So that's how you connect this. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comment section. I have this coming up on a build very soon. I'm waiting for the frame to come in and a custom toothpick build, which should be pretty interesting. And yeah, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section. And everything's linked down below. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace out, guys.